Look around you. Or perhaps, just look within. Are you alone? And more profoundly, do you even know if you're alone? We often imagine loneliness as the absence of people, a solitary room, an empty chair. But what if that's merely a superficial symptom of a far deeper, far more insidious truth? What if you are standing in the very heart of a surging, vibrant city, surrounded by laughter, by conversations, by the ceaseless hum of human connection, and yet, you feel an icy chasm opening up between your soul and the world? This isn't just about physical proximity. This isn't merely about the number of contacts in your phone or the followers on your social feed. This is about resonance. The profound, almost spiritual connection where another human being truly sees you, hears you, understands the intricate, often messy landscape of your thoughts, your passions, your quiet obsessions. Are you sharing your deepest anxieties, your most unconventional dreams, your unique perspective on the universe, only to be met with blank stares, polite nods, or worse, a hurried change of subject? Perhaps your mind operates on a frequency that few others seem to tune into. Your interests might be niche, your sense of humor unconventional, your ambition soaring far beyond the comfort zones of those around you. You might find yourself in conversations, nodding along, contributing the expected pleasantries, all while an internal monologue rages, a vibrant, complex world of ideas, questions, and insights that feels utterly isolated, an island in a sea of indifferent faces. This isn't merely shyness. This isn't merely introversion. This is the paradox of collective solitude. The silent, often unacknowledged epidemic of feeling profoundly apart, even when you are physically together. It's the unsettling realization that your inner world, the very essence of who you are, might be an experience you navigate entirely by yourself. It's the ache of a thought left unspoken, a passion misunderstood, a vulnerability exposed to a void. In this journey, we are going to strip away the common misconceptions of loneliness. We are going to stare directly into its heart and ask, what is true loneliness? Is it a curse, or a hidden catalyst? Is it a weakness, or a unique, powerful space where genuine self-discovery actually begins? We'll explore the science behind this feeling, dissect its evolutionary roots, and confront the chilling reality that in our hyperconnected age, true human connection can feel more elusive than ever. Prepare to redefine what it means to be alone, and perhaps to finally understand that you are not, in fact, alone in your unique brand of solitude. To understand the anatomy of loneliness, we must first strip away the romanticized veil of feeling sad and look at the brutal, biological reality. Science reveals that loneliness is not a personality flaw. It is a biological survival signal, as primal and urgent as hunger or thirst. When you feel that hollow ache in your chest while standing in a crowded room, your brain is firing an ancient alarm. Millions of years ago, to be apart from the tribe was a death sentence. Today, your amygdala doesn't know you're safe in a modern apartment. It senses isolation and interprets it as vulnerability to predators. It triggers a state of hypervigilance, flooding your system with cortisol and adrenaline. You aren't just lonely. Your body is in a state of perpetual high alert, a biological siege that keeps your nervous system screaming for a connection that isn't there. But here is where the deception begins. In our modern clinical era, we have fallen for a massive, structural lie. We call it clinical depression and treat it with a pill, ignoring the fact that for many, depression is merely the smoke, while loneliness is the wildfire. We treat the symptom and ignore the source. When you are isolated in your thoughts, your brain's default mode network, DMN, the circuit responsible for self-reflection, goes into overdrive. It becomes a closed loop, a hall of mirrors where your thoughts begin to prey upon themselves. This is the social pain phenomenon. The brain processes the sting of being misunderstood in the anterior cingulate cortex, the exact same region that registers physical agony. Your depression is often just your soul's way of shutting down because it is exhausted from the friction of living in a world where it doesn't resonate. It is not a chemical imbalance of the brain as much as it is a social imbalance of the spirit. Let us look at the neuropathology of the misfit. Why do the most brilliant, the most ambitious, and the most creative feel this the most? It is because of cognitive stratification. When your prefrontal cortex operates at a high complexity, you are searching for high-resolution connection. You are not looking for mere company. You are looking for intellectual symbiosis. When you cannot find it, you experience chronic relational hunger. This hunger causes the brain to enter a state of microparanoia. You begin to misread neutral faces as hostile. You perceive social cues as rejections. This is the downward spiral. The lonelier you become, the more your brain builds a fortress to protect you, effectively locking you inside a prison of your own hyper-awareness. You become a ghost haunting your own life, watching the world through a thick pane of glass. You can see the heat of human connection, but you can no longer feel its warmth. The complications are devastating. Chronic loneliness has been scientifically equated to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It accelerates cellular aging and weakens the heart. But the greatest complication is the erosion of the self. Without the mirror of a tribe that understands you, your identity begins to blur. You start to wonder if your thoughts are even real if no one else can hear them. You become a social astronaut, drifting further away from the gravitational pull of the common crowd, watching the Earth shrink until it is just a pale blue dot. You are breathing recycled air, surrounded by the silence of the void, while the world tells you to just get out more. They don't realize that for a mind like yours, getting out into a sea of shallow interactions is like a man dying of thirst trying to drink salt water. It doesn't heal the loneliness. It only deepens the dehydration of the soul. Now, we cross the threshold. We move from the victim of isolation to the master of solitude. History and science converge to tell us one undeniable truth. The crowd is where we lose ourselves, but the void is where we find our power. There is a profound, almost supernatural distinction between loneliness, which is the involuntary ache of the excluded, and solitude, which is the intentional withdrawal of the conqueror. This is the incubation phase of every titan, every genius, and every visionary who ever reshaped reality. When you stop begging for a seat at the table of the mediocre, you begin to build your own throne in silence. Scientifically, this is the activation of the supercognitive state. In the absence of social noise, the brain undergoes a process called synaptic pruning. It begins to shed the trivialities, the social masks, and the desperate need for external validation. When you are alone by choice, your brain enters the alpha and theta wave states, where true creativity and deep strategic thinking reside. You are no longer reacting to the world. You are simulating it. This is how the greats, from Newton in the plague-ridden countryside to Tesla in his darkened room, turned their isolation into a laboratory of the soul. They recognized that the world's no was actually the universe's way of giving them space. They used their loneliness as a biological forge, heating their intellect in the furnace of silence until it became a weapon of pure, focused intent. This is the moment you stop being the astronaut lost in space and start being the architect designing a new world. You emerge from the shadows not as a survivor, but as a recalibrated force of nature, possessing a depth of thought and a clarity of vision that the distracted crowd could never hope to achieve. But we must walk this path with extreme caution. There is a dark mirror to this power, a threshold where the forge becomes a prison. This is the transition into pathological loneliness. The difference between the solitude that builds and the loneliness that destroys is found in the concept of internal locus of control. Pathological loneliness is not a choice. It is an erosion of the self. It is a state where the isolation is no longer a tool, but a parasite. In clinical terms, this is where social disconnection leads to the degradation of the white matter in the brain, the very insulation that allows neurons to communicate. This is the loneliness of the lost souls, those suffering from severe social anxiety, avoidant personality disorders, or the crushing weight of systemic abandonment. Here, the silence is not peace. It is a scream that no one hears. It leads to a state of cognitive distortion, where you begin to hallucinate malice in every shadow and rejection in every silence. While the architect uses solitude to sharpen his mind, the pathologically lonely person uses it to dull their spirit, falling into the vortex of ruminative despair. One is a sacrifice for a higher purpose. The other is a sentence served in a cell of one's own making. The essential distinction is purpose. If your isolation is aimless, it will rot your heart. If your isolation is directed, it will ignite your genius. To emerge as the hero, you must learn to navigate the void without letting the void navigate you. You must distinguish between the silence of growth and the silence of decay. One is the quiet before the storm of your return. The other is the grave of your potential. You have been cast into the wilderness not to die of thirst, but to find the hidden spring that only the lonely can drink from. Master the silence, build in the dark, and when you finally step back into the light, the world will not just see a man, it will see a masterpiece that was forged in the one place they were too afraid to go, the depths of your own solitude. Now, the architect must leave the forge. Understanding the void is one thing. Mastering the world of men is another. To bridge the gap between your solitude and a circle of high-value connections, you cannot rely on luck or hope. You must apply the same engineering mindset to your social life that you applied to your inner growth. The first scientific pillar of connection is vulnerability paradox. In the laboratory of social psychology, researchers found that while we fear being seen as weak, others actually perceive our vulnerability as a signal of trust. This triggers the release of oxytocin, the social glue of the human species. To end your isolation, you must be the one to lower the drawbridge first. This doesn't mean sharing your traumas with strangers. It means the merciless honesty of being your authentic self in a world of masks. When you show your true frequency, you act as a biological filter, repelling the superficial and magnetically attracting those who resonate with your depth. The second pillar is the active constructive responding, ACR, technique. Most relationships die in the passive zone. When someone shares a victory, don't just nod. Dive into it. Relive it with them. This creates a dopamine loop between both brains, synchronizing your neural activity. This is brain-to-brain coupling, the highest form of human connection. You aren't just talking, you are literally aligning your nervous systems. The third pillar is propinquity and shared struggle. Science proves that the strongest bonds aren't formed over coffee, but over shared hardship. If you want deep relationships, find people who are fighting the same wars as you. Join the tribes of intent, the gyms, the masterminds, the creative circles where the stakes are high. When you suffer and succeed together, your brains forge a bond that is biologically indistinguishable from brotherhood. You must stop looking for friends and start looking for comrades in arms. Lastly, understand the social calibration of the prefrontal cortex. After long isolation, your social muscles are weak. You will feel awkward. Your brain will tell you that you are being judged. This is a cognitive distortion. You must perform exposure therapy on your own fear. Start small, but be consistent. Force yourself into the light until the light no longer blinds you. You have spent time in the shadows becoming a masterpiece. It is now your duty to put that masterpiece on display. Loneliness was never meant to be your grave. It was always meant to be your sanctuary of transformation. You have journeyed through the icy silence of the void, faced the ghosts of your own mind, and decoded the biological signals that once held you captive. Remember, the stars are only visible because of the vast, surrounding darkness. Your period of isolation was simply the universe clearing away the noise so you could finally hear your own voice. You are now stepping back into the light, not as the person who was left behind, but as the one who chose to walk ahead. The world is waiting for the version of you that was forged in the shadows. Go forth, bridge the gap, and build the connections you deserve. Because you were never truly alone, you were just becoming. Stay strong. Stay focused. And I will see you in the next video.